meeting of the Rotary. Still a very special meeting today, members assembly, members only. And thank you for being here. For our Zoom members, we're happy that you can join us. Please remember to mute yourself and submit any questions or comments via chat, or unmute yourself and let us hear from you. Great to see everybody here today. Thank you. Who was our greeter today? Yeah, I'm far too self-conscious to thank myself, so let's move on. The prayer and pledge today will be given by Casey Martin.
Or Richard now.
Thank you, Richard.
Okay, fine. Let us pray. Gracious Father, gracious God, we ask you to enliven our hearts and minds today as we talk with each other about the future of Rotary, about finding new members, about finding members who need to be in our club, and people whom we need to reach out to. Having opened our eyes and our hearts, we ask you to dwell there so that we make correct choices and do so lovingly and cheerfully. In your holy name we pray on that. Amen. Okay. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. For family time today, we have Christy King could not be with us today, so please welcome Lisa Marie Winslow.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. It's always wonderful to celebrate significant moments in all of our fellow Rotarians' life, and we are celebrating John Pope's birthday. Very happy birthday to you. We also have among us some anniversaries. Miss Leslie Miller, Red, is celebrating her 6 years in Rotary. Yeah, very nice. And we have a wedding anniversary. Miss Julia Kolinsky is celebrating 11 years. Congratulations, Julia. You guys got big plans for your anniversary? Or should I ask, as your husband big plans? There you go. That's what happens. So, thank you, President Richard.
That's great. Thank you. The agenda from Patty says that we have, by the way, we did Patty long distance today. She could not be here in person. And I, for one, would like to say that I miss you deeply. A craft talk from past President Gary Wilkinson. Okay, I'm here. Yeah.
Well, rather than craft talk, I'll choose the option of what happened when I was president. So I was president 2004, 2005, and there was a big event that year. That was the 100th anniversary of Rotary International. And it was ironically the 50th anniversary of our club. And so one of the big events we did that year was a 50th anniversary gala. We held it out at Deerwood. Very well attended, a lot of fun, very memorable. The other thing that I remember very well is that was the second year of the gingerbread extravaganza. And we stepped it up. The first year went very well. The second year, even better. We knew a lot better about what we were doing and how we were going to do it. But just a word about that, because it actually started, the first year of the extravaganza was the year that I was president-elect. So how did it get started? So Joe Miller, I'm sure you all, many of you know of blessed memory. Joe came to me when I was president-elect and said, I got this great idea. And he talked about it and we thought about it. And back then it was kind of the history of the club that the president-elect sort of ran whatever the big project was going to be that year. So he sold me, and I thought it would work. And we talked a lot about, and then he finished the conversation and he said, okay, you're the guy who gets to go to Hobie Jost, who's president, and convince him this is a good idea. So I remember that moment very, very well. And I sat down with Hobie after a board meeting, this was at the old hotel, and I made the pitch, and I will never forget it. And when I finished, I looked at him and he looked at me just like some of you are looking at me, expressionless for a painful few seconds. And then he said, I mean, his head didn't even move. He looked at me and he said, you want to do what? So the end of the conversation was, needless to say, he was a tad skeptical. The end of the conversation was, you need to raise X amount of dollars by a date. And I really don't remember the amount of money. And I don't remember the date. It's not terribly important, but I went back to Joe and we got out there and started looking for sponsorships. We needed sponsors and we had to hit that threshold, whatever it was going to be. And we got really close. I remember whatever the date was, we were close. And I went to Hobie and I said, look, we're really close. Give me a couple more weeks. And Hobie said, I mean, that's it. You have it on that date or we're not doing it. And about a day later, I got a phone call from William Harrell. And William was in the mountains, Carolina, I think. And it was obvious, he was obviously on a cell phone, or a car phone back then. And a lot of static in the background. And he said, Gary, I've heard about this gingerbread thing and I want you to know, I think it's a really good idea. And I was kind of surprised, to say the least. And then he said, I'm going to put Barbara on the line because she thinks it's a really good idea. And I said, great. And got on the line with Barbara and she said, Gary, I've heard about this. I think it's great. I think we can make this go. And I'm thinking terrific. And she said, and now William has something that he wants to tell you. And she handed the phone back to William. And William said, Gary, Skip and I, his partner, are jumping in for X amount of dollars and we're going to be, the lead sponsors. And that was it. We were over the number and I went back to Hobie. So anyway, that's how gingerbread got started. So I'll stop there.
Well, thank you. There is a board meeting immediately following our lunch meeting today. I believe next week we are electing 2 directors to the board. And I really don't have any other announcements. Therefore, I believe that it is time to start our members meeting. Charlie Cofer.
President Richard, throughout this year, Rotary is exploring new and creative ways to increase our impact, expand our reach, enhance the engagement of members, and increase our ability to adapt. Adaptation over the last year has been so important to maintaining Rotary. And it may well be important as we go forward until we're through this pandemic. When our membership is strong, our club is more vibrant and we have a greater impact on our community. It is also a lot more fun. So what we want to do today is to take the temperature of our club, see how we are doing in the midst of this pandemic in relation to other clubs in the zone and internationally. So how is our club doing? Well, the last 2 years have been pretty rough. It's been pretty rough on everybody. During the July 2019 to July 2020 period, the average district club lost a net of 2% of its members, primarily due to COVID. Our club lost a net of 8% of its members. Overall, our retention rate has been at 14% during the last year and a half, which is very close to the district average of 13%. However, over those 2 years, we have admitted only 12 new members, and we lost 5 of those new members within a year. So while our overall retention rate has been in the norm for other clubs, our retention rate for new members has been poor. So bottom line is that we have lost 22 existing members over 2 years and have brought in only 7 members who have actually stayed past a year. So COVID is probably the explanation for a lot of this. Changing locations, maybe some things, although I think we've done well in adjusting. And we've done well in terms of having the dual format for our meetings. So what we want to do today is to explore the factors that we have control over and that we can improve upon that will help us attract and retain more new members. The committee has set goals, which you'll hear about later today. And Mike Dara is going to give us an overall view of things in the district. But we are here today also to listen to you. Get your feedback about what you like about this club, what you think brings in members and helps us retain members. So, Mike, a view from the zone.
Thanks, President-elect Charlie. When I was district governor, it was 2019. I started off as district governor. By the time it ended, if you may recall, 2019 had a bodacious hurricane starting it out and ended up with COVID at the end. So they changed our title from district governor to disaster governors that year. But what we found was, I get to look at the stats for everybody in Georgia and Florida and Caribbean. And we found that during COVID, the pattern that Charlie talked about was repeated numerous places. And it pretty much ruled the districts. Retention, okay. New members, just not happening. And I think about myself, I wasn't certain what we were. And as far as asking somebody, once I figured it out, I had 2 things that happened. One was I thought, I really ought to invite somebody because that's the right thing to do. And it's getting to be that time. And the other thing that happened was we got our brand new president of Rotary who came from India, Shekhar Mehta, and he said, each one bring one. Because this pattern, other than India and the Caribbean, I might also say, that same pattern of good retention, but just not attracting people was going on. And you can't keep going on that way. I mean, you can't counteract the deaths. You can't counteract people who move. You can't counteract some of those things where people, as Charlie said, where they have to leave. But the things you can counteract are you can attract people. You can think who it is, who could I bring in that would get something from Rotary? And the other thing you can do is realize that new person that you were so many years ago, some of us less, some of us long time ago, it's different when you walk into a room and you don't know people. So that part, figuring out how do we attract people and how do we hold on to them and make them feel appreciated and welcomed and engaged. Those are the things that we're going to talk about today and figure out how can we do a better job with that. So if Lisa Marie would come up, I told her I would be a scribe for her. So she knows what we're doing and she will tell you what's up.
All right, so before Mike, as you can see, we've got a board set up in the back of the room. He will be strategically positioned so he can see all of the tables as you are providing your feedback. We have some magical questions that we're going to be handing out to each one of the tables. And every table has a facilitator at your table. We'll have about 5 minutes to answer a question, and only one question. And your input is very important because we want to make sure that we scribe that input and then we take that away. I do want to note, membership committee has been working on this for over 2 months now. And we know that while our input from past members, past presidents, current new members is important, all of yours and your input into what we're trying to accomplish is extremely important. So without further ado, I'm going to pass these out. Your facilitator will identify themselves if you have not figured it out yet. You'll have 5 minutes. I'm going to start the clock. You'll have 5 minutes to answer the question. I can write it down. Yes, when I say go. Somebody else All right, I'm officially starting the 5-minute timer right now. Why did I? Because of the Ooh, do I get to hit? Yes.
That's one.
If anybody's on the Zoom chat with me, I'm to be your facilitator. So if you could unmute yourself, talk over.
Jason, can you hear me?
Gotcha.
This is Stephen.
Hey, Steve,
This is
here.
Jay. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Jay.
Jason, I don't know if I'm in your chat room or not.
You're in there, Alan.
All right.
And I see Jen and Marcus Drew is with us also. Question is, why did you join Rotary? Let's start with the most mature in the room. Alan?
Well, the reason I joined Rotary because I kept hearing it was the world's best service organization, far and beyond anything that was around. So I tried to get in. Jimmy Tucker, I had to wait 6 months or more to get in. It was hard to get in, but I'm glad I did because it is the world's best.
Hey, Lockett, why'd you join?
4 minutes.
My father-in-law told me I had to.
I want to get away from other lawyers.
Can you hear me? Hello?
And Rotary does that too. That's it.
Now, I always heard about Rotary from Harvey and what an important organization it was. And, you know, at that time I was in a position at the state attorney's office. You know, part of my job was sort of community outreach. So it just seemed like a natural thing to do.
Great.
Similarly for me, Jason, I joined because of my desire to get more involved in the community and participate in the community service activities. And one of the reasons that I preferred Rotary was that we don't have sort of a narrow focus. We can get involved in pretty much whatever areas and activities of the community that we want to, that where we feel there's a need. So for me, it's the generality of it and the ability to be creative.
Excellent.
Jason, why did you join?
Well, I joined because Rotary had given me a scholarship while I was in law school that was so generous. For a kid from Jacksonville, Florida, I ended up living in England for a year and traveling everywhere. And I went, part of my requirement was to give speeches to Rotary clubs while I was overseas. And man, I thought I must have been a fantastic speaker because I just got invited all the time. And now having served on the speakers committee, I realized, no, they just needed a warm body. And there was a kid from America that would come in with a funny accent they could listen to for 20, 30 minutes.
Well, you are a fantastic speaker. You know that.
Don't get
We all know. We all
don't
know.
get his head any bigger.
Now, listen,
Come on. It's obvious.
it was, I look back now and I gave a lot of speeches that year while I was over, which was great. I mean, because they held them all in pubs. And
Nice.
most
Even
pubs
better.
had, meeting rooms above them. And it was all I could do. I figured out after the first one, like, I can't drink every pint that they offer me at lunchtime and then get up there and speak. So
Maybe that makes it even better.
it's always two fears: slurring and belching. But so yeah. But similar to what all three of you have said, I'd heard it was a great service organization, and I'd benefited from it directly, and it was just a great opportunity.
Okay, great.
All right, looks like we're back.
15. And done. All right. Everybody got their speaker who's going to present? All right. We'll let Mr. Dara get in position. So our first question, why did you join Rotary? And we will start with this lovely table to my left of Mr. Dara. Julia? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
There are 3 reasons. Service through friendship. We have reputation of Rotary, number 2. And networking outside of your classification.
Reputation of Rotary. And what do you mean when you say the reputation of Rotary?
I joined because of the hot, the reputation that Rotary has in the community, like that. That was the reason for joining.
Okay, and the reputation was?
Very positive, very, known for service.
Yeah, we did really just. And then the last one?
The last one was networking outside of your classification. So if I, anyone works in a hospital, like we're looking outside of, where we are. To form these relationships.
Did we have another table that had this question as well? Okay.
Okay, so we discussed, we came up with the community leadership and community networking, our ability to interact with others at a leadership level, the community involvement.
Hang on just a second, leadership.
Sorry. We need a transcription service.
We need not a that would be 24-hour program. And Crystal, is leadership networking similar to networking?
That's all like one. It was networking with leadership networking. Yeah. And then community involvement.
Okay.
And then the international reputation and values of the organization. And we have to put in, they finally let women in.
Good luck.
That was 1987.
Oh, was it 87?
Well, there's some people at this table who are older and remember that.
Wiser, wiser. Before we move on to the next question, Mr. Dara, before you move on, would you read those to everybody, please?
So why did you join Rotary? Service through friendship. Reputation of Rotary is that it's something good involved in the community. Networking outside your classification, so you don't just want to be around development directors, I guess. Leadership networking, so you also want to be around other leaders. Community involvement. And I didn't ask community involvement, give 3 more words about what community involvement means to you, what it meant.
Service in the community to help others.
Okay. So that's a service issue. And then international reputation and values. And I think you said something, you had a value statement on that. You mean values that, for example, there's 4-way test or other things. But when you said values, what did you mean by values?
Making a difference in the world.
Okay.
All right, so we're going to move on to the next question in light of time, but before we do, is there anything that anybody at any one of the tables or in our Zoom feedback session that you feel is missing from the list of why you joined Rotary? Going once?
This is Jason.
Yes, Jason.
One of our responses was that his father-in-law told him he had to join.
Like that, Jason. Thank you for offering that. Appreciate it.
Family pressure. So,
And if I could add, my reason is that Rotary is so forgiving because I asked the people on the Zoom in my room the wrong question to answer. So when you get to my question, we'll just circle back and answer the first one again.
As long as we have, in the meantime, why would someone you know want to join Rotary? You can work on that as we're going through this. Okay. So, yes.
Well, I just want to say my late partner and late president of this club, Albert Wilkins. I joined the club, but he was my partner when I came here as a new surgeon. He had impressed me long before that. I figured if he was a Rotarian, I ought to be a Rotarian as well.
Maybe mentorship?
so how would you say that?
Yeah,
Mentorship.
Love it.
My partner was an impressive Rotarian himself. I was invited to be a member of Rotary. I thought it can't go wrong. Plus, he's
Impressive Rotary. That puts a little burden on all of us. So we gotta go out and be like.
All right. Mr. Dare, would you mind moving that to the wall over there? And we'll move to the second question. Should just come off. There we go. Perfect. All right, so our second question, why do you like Rotary? And there may be some similar answers. So who in the room had that question? All right, table 3 over there, if you guys would like to report.
So I've noticed we have said some similar answers. But we like Rotary because of the fellowship, service opportunities that present themselves, and being a part of a local, national, and international members club. And 4th, Mike Harris keyboard skills.
And obviously not his fast writing skills. That we've done very hard. Local, international.
Local, national, and international membership club.
Okay. Ms. Winslow.
Yes. Do we have another table that answered that question? Okay, so now I open it up to the membership.
Did the Zoom folks?
We'll get to them.
Okay.
All right. Jason's still working on answering the question that he was supposed to answer.
Oh, okay.
Anything, would you mind reading those?
Okay. Why do you like Rotary? For the fellowship, service opportunities, local, national, and international membership. I should have asked a little bit more about that. When you say local, national, international membership.
Just being a part of a family that is not just local, but national and international.
Program, yeah. Get rid of polio, polio plus, all of those things are very important and they're more than local, a local, international.
Big programs that we can't do alone. Is that, would you say that's accurate?
And that's right.
May I offer one too that's not up there that I know I personally enjoy? I like being amongst people of different mindsets and being able to have a respectful and mindful conversation, even if somebody disagrees with my perspective and point of view. And I find this club and Rotary in general very open-minded with regards to the art of debate and being respectful of other people's opinions. And I really enjoyed that because in my position, I don't have anybody that I can debate with.
They won't debate with you.
I have one that likes to debate with me, but that's a whole, that we don't have time. But anyway, on Zoom, do we have anybody else who would like to offer anything in relation to this question as to why do you like Rotary? That's not already been captured? Jason?
I love Patty. That's one reason.
I think you have consensus there. All right, so let's move to our last question.
I do have to put that one down.
Well, Patty, yeah. I think we have consensus. Yeah, I'm sorry. That was my fault. I ripped it a little bit. Okay, and our last question, and probably one of the most provocative ones, is why would someone you know want to join Rotary? We've got our table to the right over here and then our Zoom folks. And since they haven't gotten to go first, Jason, is your group ready to answer that question?
I'm ready to answer it.
All right, let's hear from our Zoom group. That's you, Jason.
Well, why would somebody I know want to join Rotary?
Yes.
It's obvious, to spend more time with me.
Okay. Any other members on Zoom want to answer that question?
I was going to simply say, the same thing, so I'll defer to Jason. I bring people to spend more time with Jason.
Oh, Jay. You're not helping, Jay. All right, anybody else who has a different opinion than Jay and Jason that would like to offer anything on Zoom? Okay, then we'll move to the table in this room. Michelle, would you mind reporting for your group, please?
Beyond the items that were already mentioned in the answering of the previous question, the opportunity for personal development and skill building. The idea of the way that this club, better than most that I'm hearing, has this concept of socialization. The way that you guys socialize, you connect before, during, after meetings, and then the other things that you do. It's the process of how you guys socialize that seems to set this club up for success. And honestly, I think it's the fact that this table absolutely equates fellowship with friendship, and not just acquaintances, but with lifelong friendships that have been forged over time because of the things that you share. Everything else is pretty much the same that we've talked about before. The only thing that I wanted to add to that first question was, why did I join Rotary? I was asked.
No.
So
Very good.
Wow.
Thank you, Michelle.
So your question does, and this has some bearing on what the folks on Zoom said. You said socialize. Wanted to get a little bit of an explanation where socialize, like we tried to socialize Jason and we have failed. Or we didn't have another meeting.
no, I will guarantee that the people who are on Zoom have as much fun. The reason I know this as you do in the room is because for the last 3 weeks I've been unable to attend to protect my team. And I have had as equal social conversations, exchanges of dialogue. I have a new insurance company right now. I have somebody who's going to dog sit for a friend. This kind of social conversation, the actual thing that makes the difference between coming in, punching in, sitting down, eating your lunch, and then punching out and leaving, is the difference between, I think, why I joined Rotary versus any other social or service club available in our community now.
Thank
But
you.
it was online and in the room.
Thank you.
Can I ask Michelle to hit, that you had 2 comments in there about the new member experience and what we tended to, how we tended to change here as compared to our previous 2 locations. And John, you had one.
Just, actually, Tom had brought it up also. In the other location and even the church, we socialized, we first came in, we conjugated, or we would all gather.
As in a verb.
And continue to talk, and then we get our lunch and go sit down. Since we moved here, we come and sit down. And I don't know if it's a product of, at the other location's been a buffet to where there was no reason to go sit down yet, if we still stand, or if it was just, the room was bigger, and we have more room to sit around. We have talked about, if even in this location, keep these doors closed, but don't let us in here. The drinks out there, make us just stand out there.
Great
have
suggestion.
water, tea. Then open the doors, it's time for lunch, go find it.
Great suggestion.
I just,
Love that.
sorry, I
Yeah.
was sitting over there and that didn't come out before.
No, great suggestion. Anything that, Ms. Jared, would you mind reading those for everybody?
So why would someone want to join Rotary? The opportunity for personal development and skill building, the ability to socialize and exchange ideas and fun. I didn't get a clarification to make certain that was it. Was that it? Okay. And then fellowship, lifelong friendship. And I will say, I sat at the table, they also had international service, local service, involvement in community. Robert said the community involvement and the networking. And also I heard what started as networking, bridging into fellowship.
Awesome. Well, I think everybody should give themselves a round of applause. Subscribing, if you wouldn't mind putting that on the wall. And I would like to thank everybody for your input. We will scribe this in an electronic format and send it out with a copy of the presentation for today. And without further ado, I'd like to turn it back over to President Richard.
Thank you.
Thank you.
When Sunday afternoon rolled around, I thought I'd better start memorizing my slides. So I did, but I made a mistake. I did so sitting at the kitchen counter looking at a broadcast of Citizen Kane. So I ended up memorizing the fake opera in the middle of the movie and not the slides. So slides, yeah.
You just got the time.
Okay, our goal is to achieve a membership of 125 people by 2025. And what I'd like you to gauge that against is our membership now, which is hovering somewhere between 80 and 85 people. And that's total, that's every single person. Okay, our objectives are to outline solutions and methodologies. In other words, how are we going to get this done? Develop an action plan that will include each and every person in this club, and periodic updates on our progress. Here is your team. Our committees fell into 3 subcategories. Membership engagement was Lori Whitmer. The chair of that subcommittee, Gary Wilkinson, Mike Dara, and myself. Classification diversity, Tom Rennie, Julia Kalinsky, and Greg Anderson. Former member outreach will be Bill Langley, Lisa Marie Winslow, B4, and Charlie Cofer. There you are. Let's go to the next slide. If I have to say that every time, I'm not going to be anybody's favorite person. So I'll just stop talking when I'm done. Club membership engagement. Okay. Goal 100 membership engagement. And what that means is that we are inviting every single member to do something. It's easy to come to a meeting, I know I did it for years, and say, wow, what a fantastic goal. I hope somebody does that. This time it's you. The basis of our request that you do something is each one bring one, which was generated by our International Rotary president. And we get half of his quote here, and that's all. Caring for and serving others is the best way to live because it changes others. I'm just going to leave it at that. I'll check with him later and see how he felt to be paraphrased. Things that you can do to recruit people as guests and people who are potentially interested in membership. Use social media, your own personal outlets and avenues, and post stuff that's happening that you were involved in. Each one bring one. Each time you attend a Rotary event or of any kind, think about bringing a guest, okay? Provide contacts to the membership committee. Employ best presentation of guests at meetings. If you're wondering what that means, that's excellent because we're going to talk about that just a little bit later. Best presentation, know your club. Be ready to talk about the stuff that you've been talking about today. The values that we share, the collegiality that we share, and what it means to you in terms of networking, in terms of meaningful conversations, friendships, and so on. Follow up with each guest. After you bring a guest, wait a little while and check back with them to see what their experience was like. Let them talk. Please remember that Rotary and the Rotary experience is more than just Tuesday meetings. I certainly know that I've brought people to Rotary meetings, but I've also brought even more people to Rotary social events and service projects. And that could be just as fantastic. The last piece of direction or advice is join a committee. Why would you do that? Because if you are employed in making things happen in our club, the value of your ownership and your allegiance goes up exponentially, and your talk to other people about becoming a member of Rotary is going to be that much more meaningful. Okay, and here is the next slide. They're testing me. All right, classification diversity. Our goal is 5+ new members per year. What does classification diversity mean? It is an extremely Olympian term, and I think that it should be, because what it means is that, no, I don't. What it means is that we would employ personal referrals, industry opportunities, and community leadership to recruit members, keeping an eye on top leaders in the community. Top leaders speak to top leaders. We have people of that caliber in our club, and that is what this subcommittee is all about. Next one. Former member outreach. Our goal is to increase active club membership by 20 members by 2025. And that is in this subcommittee, 20 members who have decided to become former members and might come back. Our method is to generate a list of former members, consult with former member sponsors and current club members, personally contact each former member, and host an event for them, like a reunion or something like that. All right. I feel like I'm speeding through this slide. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
So quick
Yes, sir.
clarification.
Mhm,
You said there are 3 different ways that we were looking at getting that,
mhm.
because we can't see the slide.
Oh, I'm so sorry. The 3 different ways are what? They are to have a every member emphasis, and
Each one of us.
each member of the club would be mindful always of who they could bring to an event as a guest.
Okay.
Mhm.
The second one was,
Employing classifications to interest and attract people who are very high profile leaders in the community. And the third one is former members.
okay.
Yes, that was a useful recap. Thank you. In summary, the Rotary Club of South Jacksonville is climbing 3 separate mountains for one goal. Membership engagement, there it is again, classification, diversity, and former member outreach. Questions?
Yes, Gary.
Oh, Gary.
I could not, the humorous irony did not escape me. Albert Wilkinson invited Dr. Webb, very appropriately so, to become a member. My invitation from Albert Wilkinson was a little bit different. It was far more in the camp of Jason Burnett of something like this: son, it's time for you to join Rotary. But I was happy to do so. So I want to talk about process, which I know a lot of times sounds boring, but I hope this won't be. And I'm gonna make 3 primary points, but I want to start with what doesn't sound like process at all. What's the goal? The goal is stated in our bylaws, it's stated in the Rotary Constitution, it's stated in our policies. Who are we looking for? The club shall be composed of adult persons of demonstrated good character, integrity, and leadership. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for those 3 characteristics in everybody we bring in. What the heck does that have to do with process? Well, I want to talk about that as I go through. So there's 3 things, 3 general topics I want to talk about. First is inviting them and getting them here. And what do you do when they're here? Secondly, the application process. How do you do it? Where does it go? And then finally, very briefly, the actual induction process when we induct new members. So inviting them. And folks, let me tell you, I am not suggesting for 2 seconds that Gary Wilkinson is the greatest at this, but one of the things that, because I have been in the club so long, is watching other people who are the folks that really do this well. When they bring guests, how do they do it in a way that's going to make a difference, both for the prospective member and the club? Well, the first thing obviously is each one bring one. You got to be thinking about it. We all got to be thinking about it. Everything that we're doing here today ain't going to work if we're not all constantly, consistently conscious for this year and into the next 5 years about who's out there that we can invite. It's just what Michelle said. Somebody asked me and I came. So when they get here, what do you do? The very first thing is, and again, this is watching other people really do it well. When you bring them in and you pick where you're going to sit, take them around and introduce them to every single person that's at your table. And believe me, there are times if things are going well and you got a lot of new members, you as the new member are going to walk up to that table and go, I'm going to sit here. Oh, shoot, I don't know that guy's name. I don't know that gal's name. Just go around, introduce them first to the person that you know. When you get to the person you don't know, that person's going to know what the game is going to stand up and introduce himself or herself, and then you'll learn something new yourself. But it really is important after the meeting. And again, I watch people who do this really well. My dad really was terrific at it. He wasn't done when the meeting was done. He would take that prospective guest and try to get him around to introduce him or her to whoever he thought he really wanted them. It might be just the people that were close to his table. I watched Bob Massey Jr. do that. He's really good at it. And just put yourself in that prospective member's shoes. You walk into that room, you may know a few people, you may not know anybody. Think how much better you feel about the prospects if that person cares enough to take you around and get you introduced. The other thing that I wanted to say that really makes a difference, and President Richard, where did he go? Maybe a little bit upset that I say this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Take your time. Introduce the person. Tell us as much about them as you know. If this is somebody you've known all your life, tell us about their spouse, tell us about their kids, tell us about what they want to do, tell us about what they do in the community. It really makes a difference. We learn and they feel better because somebody actually cared to stand up and say, let me tell you what I know about this guy or this gal. So all those things are really important. One, please don't do. This is the only, I'm doing a lot of do's, this is the only don't do. And we do see it occasionally, and I've done it, and you got to stay away from it. Please do not, when you are introducing a prospective member, say that this person is interested in being in the club. Or this person's here today because, and I hope we get their application in soon and get it done. And there's a couple of reasons why we don't want to do that. Number one, we really don't want to denigrate the process in any particular way. And secondly, it doesn't happen a lot, but I'm going to tell you what actually happens when the application comes through. And although this doesn't happen frequently, it very definitely does happen that sometimes that application hits a bump in the road and it's not going any farther. And if we've introduced this person as somebody who's prospectively coming in the club who doesn't, we've really embarrassed ourselves. We potentially embarrassed the prospective member, probably have embarrassed the prospective member. And so it's really important that you don't do that. It's okay. Somebody mentioned in our membership meetings, if you want to clue us, a great way to do it is say, I'd like to introduce Crystal Brohan today. She's my special guest. Add the word special, and now we all know. And if you do something like that, and you hear somebody say that, or you know somebody is bringing this person, get back to what I said earlier. Before you leave, go over and shake that hand, stick your hand out, introduce yourself. The more people that meet that prospective member, the better that prospective member is going to feel, and the more we know about him or her. Okay, the application. So it's not complicated. It's got to be signed by the proposer or the endorser, whoever it is that is proposing the member. It's got to be signed by 3 other people, and 2 of them have to be board members. Here's the main thing we need to know, and I've seen some of these things recently, and I don't mind telling you, we're all falling down on the job on this. Good applications can be a page, maybe 2 pages long. It's give us as much detail as you can. Just like I said, when you are standing up and introducing the prospective member to the club, tell us all about him or her background. Education is great. Their experiences. A big thing to talk to them about is what community service have they been involved in. That's critical. We really want to know that. We're obviously a service organization. You look down at that app, if you're a board member or a proposer, because very often, you walk around and say, hey, Tom, when you sign this for me, Tom doesn't have any idea who this person is that I brought. And what Tom really would like to know is, tell me something about this person. So he's going to sit down at the table and he's going to look down and see that, this gal was president of the YMCA last year and she's on the board of the junior league and whatever. That's going to have real meaning. And you can pick that up in about 2 seconds. If you just take the time to fill that thing out, tell us all about them, everything that you know, that's appropriate. So what happens to the application? We spent a lot of time over the years working on this, believe it or not. And the process that we came up with, I realized perfectly well that typically you're going to take that app, you're going to hand it to Patty. That's fine. But the app is going to end up with the club secretary. And that's what our process provides. And our secretary this year is Greg Anderson. The secretary is going to send that thing to 2 different committees. We have a membership committee and we have a classifications committee. Classifications is pretty easy. They're going to look at and figure out what that person's classification is. The membership committee has a critical role. And this gets back to what I was saying earlier about being discreet. The membership committee is going to coordinate that application with anybody in a similar field. Okay. So let's say we've got a air conditioning subcontractor. Who's a proposed member. Who are you going to coordinate with? I thought about this driving over. Off the top of my head, if I were membership, I would call Rick Morales and I would ask Rick if he knew anything about that person. I would call Harlan Bost. I'd go down the roster and look at everybody's impression, make sure, and I want to call everybody. And occasionally you'll get some feedback and go, wow, didn't know that. Okay. The other ones are easy. If it's a lawyer, you're gonna call half the club. If it's a dentist, we're gonna call Rick Mullins. But that really is the way that it works. And it's a critical part of what we do. So keep that in mind. So what happens after that? When it makes it out of membership and classifications, it's going to go to the board. The board is going to vote, it's a majority vote, and then the application goes into the gear. We call that bulletin. And members under our bylaws have 10 days to object. Doesn't happen very often. Does it happen? It absolutely does. In my year, it happened twice. And we had a board meeting. It goes under the rules, it goes back to the board, and the board, the member who objects is usually invited to come to the board meeting and say why he or she is objecting. Then you hear that out, and then the board votes again. And if it's a majority vote, then the member's admitted, and if it's not, then the member's not. Again, it doesn't happen often. But that process is there and it's available if it needs to be. Okay, let me just mention just a couple of, just one other quick thing. How does it work when you bring somebody, a prospective member, in terms of money? So our policies provide that the first meal is paid for by the proposer. So if you bring somebody, you're going to pay for that. You bring them back and you let Patty know and say, this is somebody I'm working on. The next 2 meals will be picked up by the club. Beyond that, honestly, I'm not sure because that's what the policies say, but that's pretty much it. And then finally on induction, and I go back to Michelle's, and her proposer was Bob Massey Jr. That's the right way to do it. For those of you who were here and saw it, if you are the proposer, if you can't be here, make sure it gets canceled. You should not induct a new member without your being here, because this is your final chance to introduce this person to the club, because people invariably, there'll be a number of people who know them, but there'll be some who don't. Tell us all about it. Go back. It's really important. Go back through their history. Tell them why you proposed. Tell us why you proposed this person to Rotary, where he or she is from, where they went to school, their community involvement, their business. Absolutely bring their spouses or significant others. We want it to be a big event. We want it to be important. And the past presidents always do a good job on the charge. Are we okay for time? Because there's one other thing. Do I need to quit?
We're kind of getting tight on it.
Okay, I'm going to be real quick about this. So one of the things that I've noticed when I invite people, and we talked about this on the membership committee, is what are the primary not objections, but what's the primary feedback when you say, hey, Tom, would I'm in Rotary, I've been in there for 20, 30 years, I really love it, it's a great service organization, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's going to be 2 things that I have found over time that are the first questions you're going to get. The first one is, how much does it cost? Right? And so it's important that you know what the answer to that question is. And what I found out is if you give them a ballpark of what it's going to be annually, because it can change depending on whether or not we have a big service project or a gala or something like that, but know what that is, and be prepared to tell them what quarterly dues are. Be prepared to tell them that there's a service requirement. I think it's $25 a quarter, and we really want everybody to be sustaining members, and you might as well go ahead and address it with them right up front. And that's as little as I think $25 a quarter or something like that. But go ahead and address it up front, because that's a lot of people's concerns. The second, which I really should have said first, is attendance. And so I've said this to the group before, and I'll say it again. In my years, although it was some time ago, being an assistant district governor, I learned that one of the biggest challenges that lunch meeting clubs have is that most of the new clubs that are forming are either morning clubs or they're evening clubs. It's tough to be in a lunch club. And so people are going to ask you about attendance, and you need to be prepared on what your answer is. And I will tell you what I do. Let's all be blunt. It isn't exactly what it was before. The year that I was president, we had an attendance, everybody in the club physically coming to the meeting or making up north of 90%. And that was slightly low. Whatever it was 91 or 92%, that was slightly low. It was typically 95, 96, 98%. Absolutely, people missed, they made up. But you got to be able to deal with that question. And the way that I deal with it is I say, look, you're not going to get kicked out if you miss meetings. That's just the cold hard reality. But the cold hard reality is we're not inviting you in to come every once in a while. And if you really think you're going to do that, you're probably not going to get anything out of it. You're not going to be around very long. So the bottom line is what you get, what you put in is what you're going to get out. And so the best Rotarians, the ones who enjoy it the most, are the ones who are here the most. And that's what I tell them. And that's either going to do it or it's not going to do it. Okay, any questions? Yes, sir, Dr. Webb.
How restrictive are the geographic boundaries these days in today's world of working from home?
It's still, I don't remember whether it's not in the policies, it's either in the bylaws or the Constitution. It's still there that says that they either should be working or living within a geographic boundary. I don't know exactly what ours is, obviously the south side. I don't think we stick to that. I don't think that we scrutinize that. I'm not sure we should, but one of the things that, and again, I've repeated this, in most cases, particularly if you're at a lunch club, if they're working, he or she is working, they need to be pretty close by, or it's just, no pun intended, it ain't gonna work. If they're retired, doesn't matter as much, or if somebody, is truly his or her own boss, small business, they own it, and they say, no, that's no problem. Yeah, I live in Arlington, I work in Arlington, but I can hop over the bridge and make it. There's not going to be any prohibition, and nobody's going to scrutinize it because that person lives in Arlington. Okay, anything else? All right, very good.
All right, we're going to bring this to a landing here for a few minutes. First of all, I want to thank everybody for your comments and feedback during our little group sessions. And I think it's very helpful to the committee. Going forward, what you're going to see is a more detailed explanation of what our goals are between now and 2025. But I want to talk about some of our feedback here. When I was looking at the comments about why did I join Rotary and why would you want someone else to join Rotary, it really crystallized in my mind that what each of you like about Rotary are the best selling points for you in encouraging people to join Rotary. You talk about service to the community, engagement with various people in the community. All of these things are those factors which not only brought you to Rotary, but keep you in Rotary. So those are your best selling points in terms of bringing in and inviting new members. That's one thing. And also understand, when you see the more detailed goals that come out, these are shared goals. We hope for 100% participation on the part of everybody, but if everybody does participate, we're going to meet these goals. I'm confident that we'll meet these goals. Finally, comments about the uniqueness of the club. When you're talking about Rotary, sometimes the people you're going to be talking to may be talking with downtown, Breakfast Club, or whatever. Look at what are the unique characteristics of our club, the closeness among members, the networking that we have, and sell this club. And if you can't sell this club, sell Rotary. So somebody joins somewhere.
And Jason Burnett.
And I forgot Jason, if it's a real tight squeeze, just throw his name out.
I'm available. Personal
And
appearance.
understand the one thing I think was really important today, and that's called the ask. We're not going to have somebody walk in here and be admitted to Rotary unless somebody has asked them to join. Somebody has brought them in. Somebody has connected our club with them. So the ask is important. So thank you all for your participation today, and
We have a handout for
from
everybody.
the PowerPoint.
Like, just remind everybody what our goals are. If you have any other questions, follow up. You can reach out to any of the committee members.
And don't forget the board meeting.
Yes.
And the gavel back.
President-elect Charlie, you were expertly ending the meeting. Thank you. With gavel in hand. I would just like to say, as we close it very rapidly, that Standing here and thinking about it, I remember that my sponsor was Bobby Purser. And we had nothing in common at all except for Rotary. But he insisted on something that I think that we have all emphasized today, and that is collegiality. There has to be a commonality, there has to be a common ground, a basis for friendship. He finally found it with me. We both adored the San Marco Library. And he made me feel welcome, and he made me feel like a member. I guess that's all I have to say. Next week, our speaker would be Monique Chapman, the principal at Venetia Elementary School, a place that many of us have volunteered as reading volunteers. As we end our meeting, please join me in the Rotary motto.
Service of self, one cause is most to serve best.